All right, good afternoon or good morning, everyone. My name, of course, is Nolan Duda, Client Experience Manager for Ideal Traits. And today, for our second Allstate exclusive agent webinar, we are blessed with Allstate royalty today. We have Gina Eubanks and Kelli Hayes. Gina originally started the agency in 1995, and Kelli joined, of course, here in 2017. They originally started utilizing Ideal Traits back in 2018, so for the last 6 years now, going on 7. They have 2 offices in the state of Louisiana with 18 staff, where they have 4 staff members working locally, and then 14 of them working remotely. So remote will surely be a part of our conversation. But over the last, or since 1995, over the last almost 30 years, the agency has, of course, gotten to the point where we're in the top 1% of all states. So Gina, Kelli, I'm very fortunate, as I think I've said several times, but I really do mean it, very, very appreciative of the time that you're giving us today to talk through over the last couple of years how you guys have been able to be successful when it comes to staffing and recruiting, utilizing Ideal Traits, and I'm sure we'll touch on a couple of other resources that you use too. But thank you both for your time. It's very much appreciated. Appreciate you guys being here.
Thanks. We're happy to be here.
All right, awesome. Well, I think it would be great. Usually what we kick off here is just a little bit of the background of the agency that you guys feel is important, to note, obviously, in the last several years of, having you both be at the agency. But Gina, if you wanted to share even a little bit before that, but just the history of the agency that's gotten you to the point you are today, and then we'll get into the staffing and recruiting side of it, if that works for you both.
Sure. I think, yes, I've been here a while, over 30 years, but it wasn't until 2018 where we kind of made a transition from your typical organic, I don't know if I'd say old school, but your typical agency model, to where we moved more into paid leads, hiring, recruiting, all the things that came with that. So we've kind of been on both sides of the coin there. Probably been on every Allstate contract that there is. And so, yeah, it's quite different now. The things that you guys do and have brought to the table have been super helpful in that process of hiring and acquiring business the way that we do now, as opposed to the way it was. So,
yeah, perfect. Kelli, anything you would like to add there?
No, I came along about the same time as Ideal Traits, so I don't know it before that we joined Ideal Traits, so I don't know our agency without it.
Absolutely. And again, fortunate to have you over the last 6 to 7 years. And I suppose that's a good transition to getting into it. So with staffing, Gina, you mentioned that 28 period was sort of when you decided to make a change to start to do things a little bit differently and build a process that I imagine works for, your specific office. And I'm sure people can take a little bit from that. But when you were making that decision in 2018, I'm sure, of course, staffing was a part of it. We're going to need staff to be able to reach the goals that we're looking to shift towards. So what did that look like in 2018 and where is it at now? I'm sure, of course, Ideal Traits became a part of it, but, creating job ads, knowing when to hire. Is it, I guess, in simple terms, do you approach hiring as more of a, hey, we always need to be recruiting? Or is it more of like, hey, we'll hire staff when we need to?
I think for us, I think it's not, I used to say we're always hiring, and we do hire a lot of people, but I think it's really more of always recruiting. I think that's the key piece. As you do it, I think it's, when we were organic before COVID hit, we weren't remote, all the things. It was a totally different thing. In the middle of all that, we opened an ECP, which we had to hire a lot of people. So we were kind of forced to do it by a lot of things, and it's just kind of evolved since then. But I think that the piece that's helped us is if you think of it like prospecting for business. You've got to have a little bit of several things. You can't have just one thing that you're doing. But the remote option, we're in a small area, small town in Louisiana. Well, my agent was in a small area. We had 5 agencies. We've gone down to 2. We've gone from probably 4 or 5 employees all the way up to 18. Most of them are remote, which I think you mentioned earlier, but Kelli has done a really good job of just being that consistent weekly going through the process of just kind of I guess, sifting through what is there. But I think the biggest deal is that it's the consistency. The tools and products that you guys have has allowed us to kind of create that consistency. And she can speak more to how she does that part of it.
Yeah.
But I think for us, it's just the always consistently recruiting.
Yeah, and I think that's makes a lot of sense. That difference between always be hiring and always be recruiting is that you should always be looking for good people. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're hiring. It just means that you're looking for someone who may be a good addition. But perfect. So Kelli, turn it over to you a little bit here in terms of utilizing that ideal traits account and sort of setting it up as the foundation in the process. When you're going through creating job ads and doing these things, how do you work to set the Gina Eubanks agency apart from all the other agencies that are out there when you're creating job ads? Are there any helpful tips or tricks or anything that you use that agents out there may be able to benefit from?
I don't think I do anything that's necessarily groundbreaking. I do look at, I'll get on Indeed and I look at our competitors' ads. I see what they're doing. And then I will get on and look at, the really successful agents in Allstate, and I look in their areas, look for their ads. And then when I get on to Ideal Traits, what's been really great is y'all have that our AI component now. And so I kind of borrow from everybody, but then I also know what we're looking for. And the number one thing we're looking for is some of our culture. And so I'm able to add that piece to it. And we are always recruiting, but depending on if we're always recruiting for sales. If I need to go in and I'm recruiting for service, I will go in and tweak that specifically for what we're looking for in a certain whoever's going to fill that seat.
It makes total sense. And talk about the artificial intelligence tool. I know that it's been a fan favorite amongst agents, and I'm sure that saved you a whole bunch of time from what you were maybe using the templates or copy and pasting, from before. So that's good to hear. And I think it's important to note there and that you're talking about the personalization and specifics to, the agency that, you both are a part of, is making sure that, the AI transcription is great, but then you still have to be able to personalize it a little bit. So I imagine based off of what you mentioned, you're spending some time doing that, making sure that you guys are tailoring it towards the candidate that you're looking to recruit. Yes?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. And I know in the conversations that we've had, Ideal Traits, of course, is one of the many resources that you guys are using. So if you want to, pinpoint anything specific that you use in addition to that, that would be great. But then let's talk about the assessment, I suppose, as well in conjunction with that, because if you're, with agents that are pulling candidates from a lot of different places, with Ideal Traits being, one of the resources, how do you guys find the assessment fitting into your process? So I guess it's a two-part question. But the resources that you're using in total, and then the assessment, I think would be great.
Sure. So another thing that we do besides having our job ads and Ideal Traits is I also go out into Indeed and I will search, I guess, headhunt for people that are looking for jobs. And in that, I'm able to make it very specific. I'm looking for people with insurance experience. And sometimes where we are right now, I'm looking for people specifically with Allstate experience. And while we do hire remotely, we like to keep our remote in a smaller circle. So most of our people work within a 5-hour driving distance of us. We like to get together a lot as a team. So that's important to me, and that gives me that opportunity to do that. And of course, we use referrals from our team because our team knows our culture. And so if they have someone they think would be great for our team, I always interview them as well. I think did that answer the first part of the question?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. I think it did. Yep.
And then to answer the second part of the question, I will say I used to always say I use Ideal Traits as my e-agent, which I do. I literally note every interaction I have. I also think it's probably my CRM too. I mean, that's my whole pipeline. And so someone may not be they could be a good fit for the agency, but I don't have a role for them right now. I'm able to keep them and keep that note.
Yeah.
And I love, because we have a management team, all of us know any interaction we have with the prospect, we put it in the comments in the agent so we can each just continue the conversation with that prospect. So that's been super helpful for us. I didn't know, Gina, if you had something.
No, I think you used the word pipeline, and that's exactly where I was going. I said, if you think about it, a lot of agency owners like, I don't have time to do all that. I don't think it should be your only thing. I just think it should be part of building that strong pipeline. And just like when you hire a new person or whatever, they come in, it's going to be slower. But as you consistently build that, you have the thing, you guys have all the resources within that and are constantly improving that for us. That just kind of make it easier. And then when Kelli took over the hiring piece and got me out of it, fired me, as she said, it really allowed us to move at a faster pace. And she stayed focused on what the agenda was, what we were looking for, and has been able to streamline that through you guys as well. So that was helpful in just get through the volume of it.
Yeah. It can be overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
Like, it truly can be. And I really loved how, Kelli, I think it was you that mentioned that it is your CRM, right? It's your CRM. And Gina before had mentioned that you got to compare it to like marketing, like when you're trying to get new business, right? So you can just tell by talking to both of you just in this, in the last 12 minutes, it's like, no, they treat it like it's marketing, right? Like they're talking about a CRM, talking about, going after prospects or, leads, right? And those comparisons between the two. And it's important, I think, to treat the same, to have a budget towards your recruiting as well, right? Because at the beginning, I know, of course, we're getting here to the end of the year. A lot of agencies, they don't have a recruiting budget. They have a marketing budget. They don't have a recruiting budget. So then implementing that too, I'm sure is important, right? To making sure that you have the ability to put time and effort and money towards the resources that you're using. But I know we had talked a little bit about remote already. So I think a lot of agents that are out there too, they're like, man, I'm in a small market, similar to what, Gina, you had mentioned you guys are in. And yeah, remote would help me, but I don't know how to get started, right? And take that first leap to hiring a remote staff member. So Kelli, Gina, if you guys want to talk about that, and I made that transition to where you have remote employees now, again, the majority of your employees are working remotely. I think a lot of people would benefit from that as well.
Well, the very first step is creating the job ad on Ideal Traits, and you can put it as fully remote. And then when I'm looking in Indeed, I go to specific areas. We're in Louisiana, but we write in Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas. So I search those areas specifically. It just opens up the pool for us.
Yeah. And then, in terms of like a process change, I'm not sure when the agency had maybe made that. Maybe it was during the pandemic or even before that, because I know that's the case for some folks. Are there any processes or systems or anything that you guys recommend for someone who's like, I've never even had a remote employee before, so I don't really, my inexperience is kind of making me hesitant. So, what processes or systems or procedures do you guys use to, manage and support and hold accountable remote employees to make it to where once you have that job ad posted, you're fully comfortable knowing that you can support them and give them a place where they can be successful?
I think that's probably a whole nother meeting. I don't know how to consolidate that into one answer, but
Sure.
I do think it's like anything else. When you first start, it all seems overwhelming, and you just have to break it down into smaller pieces. And it's like anything you start new. Figure out what your goal is, where you're going, and just start it. Just do something. Connect with people that are doing it already. I'll be glad to visit with anybody that's looking to go down that road. Technology has given us so many tools to be able to do that. We feel very comfortable in working remotely. It's just I don't even think about it now. It's just how we function. And I think you only know that when you start doing it. So I don't think it's any magic bullet there. But I will say this too, because we mentioned we we go through, whether it's referrals or whether it's Ideal Traits or whoever, however we get our prospects, we always send them back through the assessment. Like, it doesn't matter where they come from, because you guys have a lot of really good insight on the personality traits. And if you're not using people that are using it, I would encourage them to go and look at, I think there's like a more help or more information button there to where it really defines what that means, because what we found is it's super helpful to be able to go back, even after people are on board with us, to go back through and say, look at their personality and where they can. It helps us manage them. And we're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So they're probably like, when you're trying to get them in the right seat on the bus kind of thing. So just regardless of where they come from, they do come through that. And it's super helpful with the remote world too, because you don't get to see them every day. Like physically see them. So I think that's super helpful for us.
Yeah, just to build on that, if I could. So kind of our process is, regardless of how I find them, they've already in Ideal Traits, or if I'm headhunting, I put them in Ideal Traits. Once I get a positive response, they want to talk to me, I call them within 24 hours. It's kind of like your leads. You want that speed to contact.
Yeah.
Through that initial phone screening, then I decide if it's someone I feel like I want to know more about. All of those people get the assessment. I ask them to complete that. And if they finish the assessment or not determines if they move further in our process with us. Because if they can't do that, then that's telling me something already. It's also telling me if it takes them a week to do it, they're not that, it's not an urgent job situation for them. I honestly, and I tell my people when I talk to them, the importance of the assessment for me. I tell them not to rush through it, that it's not timed. I want an accurate picture of who they are in the workplace. My background is that I'm a marriage and family therapist. I'm not in the insurance world. And so I absolutely look at the different personality types because I'm building a team dynamic. And so I know, based on what they come back as and what their answers are, and if they can problem solve, if they're going to be a good fit for us or not. I initially am the one that looks through all that data. And if it's someone that I want to continue a formal interview with, then the rest of our management team will then look through the results of the assessment.
That's really good. And sorry, I think I might have sent us down a rabbit hole there with remote, but I'm glad you guys brought us back. And we did get a question from the audience here. And if anyone else has questions, please feel free to use the Q&A section. But Courtney asked to talk a little bit more about the personality types. Are there certain personality types that you love and certain types that you typically avoid? Of course, that probably depends on the position and depends on remote versus in office. But if you guys want to jump into that, I think that would be great.
So for sales, Gina's favorites are the closers and the sales leaders. I think she's also a closer. But we also have some great sales people on our team that came back as competitors and persistent. And for our team in service, we're looking for persistence, usually good, knowledgeable, love a nurturer that's in service, and perfectionists. Sometimes we have to help them not make everything perfect, but they're usually good. They're very thorough. Do you have more to add to that, G?
I was just going to say, with a lot of the changes that Allstate has made, we're not really sure the impact on that and how we're going to attack it. But I do think it's really going to open up more opportunity for what has been, I guess, deemed as the inside sales group, or maybe the service team, and how they interact with customers now. So I think it's even become more important to look at the personality traits, I guess. It may change the way I think it's definitely going to change where we get our sales, the percentage of where we get our sales from, I would say, as paid leads versus inside the book. I think we're going to move more towards towards that. And I think this will be very helpful for that as well. So.
And if you've not looked at ideal traits in the personality type, when someone comes back, I still find it really helpful that you get a description of the personality type, and then they have sample interview questions that I can then spitball off of. It's super helpful.
I think that, and then I think there's a video that explains kind of each characteristic or personality that's super helpful, insightful, and how you react to that person initially, how you interview them, and even once they're on the team, how you manage them. So.
And that's really good to know, because a lot of people may, when they consider the assessment, may be lost in terms of what they're reading, right? So if you log into your account, what they're referring to now for all those listening is that learn more button just below the personality result. It'll open up an article with more information in that video. And then at the top of your screen, if you click the help button, you can also schedule, an assessment training with one of our individuals on our team. So if you prefer to talk to someone, you have that option. If you prefer to read an article, you can do that. Or if you want to watch a video, you can do that. But starting to look at the assessment, look at your job duties to make sure you're finding positions and personalities that work for you is what's going to be most important. But the assessment, of course, the personality, I appreciate you both for highlighting the personalities you generally look for. There's also that critical thinking portion and the short answer. We heard Danny on Tuesday talk about, how he incorporates that into his process. How closely do you guys pay attention to the problem solving and the short answer? Is there anything specific that you're looking for, like a specific score or a specific thing to be said during the short answer? But you should the assessment as well after the personality.
I do want to add one more thing before we move on to that.
Sure.
In the performance index.
Yeah.
So for us, especially for remote workers, we want to have people with high scores with high motivation and drive because they're on their own, right? Yeah. But definitely for sales, you want that number high. And you also, with the persuasiveness and convincing, I'm making sure that number is high for sales. And then the opposite numbers when I'm hiring service, I'm looking for high numbers on people that for the structure, routine, and for the thorough and compliant. So we definitely look through those numbers as well. And G, I'll let you talk about the problem solving piece.
I think the problem solving is super important. I think our number is
7
or above. And we definitely look at the short answers. We don't want just a lot of one-word answers. We like to see the thought that goes into it and like just their ability to think through the question. So Kelli does more of that part of it, but definitely we spend a lot of time in both of those areas.
Yeah, I think for us, we use other systems than Allstate systems. And so people have to have, and if you're remote, you can't look how someone else is getting through a system. So if they're a 7 or below, I'm probably not interested in them. And if they're even 8 to 10, I'm just going to follow up with them with some, ask them some things to see what happened with that or how they are, try to dig in a little deeper there for problem solving. And yes, we definitely read the short answers, and they're super short for most salespeople, and most service people write you a little monologue, which is fine. It's for us, again, it goes back to managing. We like to know what their motivators are. We like to know, some people, if they tell us what they don't like about their previous job is they're being micromanaged, I need to find out what that means to them. So it just gives us some more conversation points with them to try to get to know them a little bit better.
Makes total sense. And I think this might be a little bit of a backtrack, but I think you mentioned a little bit about it already, Kelli, and I wanted to just circle back to it. But you mentioned, I think, calling the candidates. Are you texting them? Are you emailing them as well in that communication within that 24 hours that you mentioned, or is it just phone calls?
I am, unless they don't have a voicemail set up, I'm calling them. Yeah, I like to hear people's voice when they're not in interview mode.
Yeah.
It's just it's not an interview. It's just, if it's someone that's already working remote and they answer the phone, I want to hear, is the TV on in the background? Are kids screaming? It just gives me some more information about them.
Yep. Makes total sense. Yep. All right, cool. And then, once they've applied, they've completed the assessment, they've talked to Kelli. What then happens next? Is there anything, throughout the webinars that we've done since February, we've heard a lot of unique things that have come out of interview processes. Anything unique that you guys are doing, you feel as if as a part of that interviewing, once you get the candidate that you like, that you feel you're going to move on to the next step? Anything unique? We've heard about role plays, you've heard about taking them out to dinner, all these different things. So is there anything unique that you both are doing that people may benefit from adding to their process?
I don't know that we do anything unique. Once our management team that we've all looked at the assessment and we've decided it's someone we want to have a more formal interview with, then we do a Zoom interview that typically will involve me again, and then either the sales manager or the service manager. And that's it. I can't think of anything else. Do you, G?
I don't think so. I do think you'd asked earlier about on the front end, how do we decide? And we talked about recruiting. I think there's a tool out there. Is it the ROI calculator? Is that what it's called?
Yep.
Yes. If you haven't used that, it's a fantastic tool to go in and see, especially now with the comp changes. I use that a lot when I go in to see, okay, how much does someone have to write with our average premium to make it worthwhile, and it'll spit it out over a period of time with your numbers. It's not national numbers or whatever. So you get to put your numbers in there. An example of that the other day, now that we have a new comp structure, I'm going into it and seeing, whereas I used to have like a 25 item is my minimum we have to get them up to 20 items within the first 90 days, preferably 60. Now that number is moving up based on that, and you can calculate it pretty quickly going through that. So
yeah, that's really good to mention. And if you're looking for the ROI calculator that Gina is mentioning, that was created by, of course, our CEO, Kevin Melnerick. If you go into your account, go to the dashboard, it's right there in the bottom right of your dashboard. You'll be able to see it. And as Gina mentioned, you'll be able to plug in your specific numbers to your specific market and your agency to get that calculation of a return on investment. And in terms of the process that, Kelli had mentioned, I know you mentioned there isn't really anything unique or out of the box, but I think what is awesome is that you have multiple people involved in the process. So there's multiple perspectives being shared to make sure that the candidate fits in all the boxes in terms of, I'm sure, job requirements, but then also the culture that's present within the agency. So I think that's great. But as we wind down here, the last question that I would love to end with, as you guys have been using Ideal Traits for, again, 6 to 7 years now, and the agency, Gina, has been around for almost 30 years. Congratulations, of course, on that again. But what's the one thing that you recommend to folks that maybe are struggling within their Ideal Traits account that, everyone should be doing every single time, or that you guys will never go without inside your Ideal Traits account? Is there anything that you would pinpoint that everyone should be doing based off of the experience that you have?
Go ahead, Kelli. You can.
Okay. For me, it's because our whole leadership team goes in there to read, and they may have separate interviews if I'm not available. It's using that comment section with every interaction. Because there are a lot of times I have people that apply this year and then they also apply next year, and I've already interviewed them. And so I'm able to very quickly see what I wrote about them, what I remembered about them. So for me, it's just, I keep up to date with taking my notes in there.
Yeah, perfect. Gina, anything you want to add there?
I just think if the whole way I think about hiring now is completely different from what it was, I'll say pre-2018. I think it's, if you used to, you needed someone, you look for resumes, you try to find somebody locally. Now it's just a bigger thing. You just really, it's so similar to how we prospect for business and all the tools that you have. And you could use this as a CRM or whatever. I think it's just the consistency of doing it, building that pipeline and using the tools that are available. I think there's a lot to it. You can't just go out there and just do it once and okay, we're going to hire this person. You think you have to be constantly doing it, constantly bringing people in, constantly. You're going to hire so many. It's just like you're going to quote so many. You're only going to sell so many, and then you got to retain them. It's kind of the same process. So
Really good. Awesome. Well, again, I appreciate you both. And it's, again, important to note that I think both Kelli and Gina had mentioned here that they're not doing anything out of the box or crazy or super unique. They have a process that works for them, and it's things that everyone can really implement today to begin seeing results and to begin being successful when it comes to recruiting within your Ideal Traits account. So if you have questions in regards to your account and how to set it up or get it to working the way that you want it to work, reach out to us. Like, that's what we're here to help with. Everyone after the webinar will be directed to Ideal Traits /blueprint. So you'll be able to check out the open enrollment offer that is there. If you send in your receipt, you of course will receive your SMS texting feature and the video interviewing feature included with your package this year for the same price point as it was last year. So Gina, Kelli, I really appreciate you guys taking 45 minutes today. And then of course the time yesterday aside to participate here. I think everything that you guys mentioned is super beneficial to hear, especially with how it's easy to be implemented tomorrow if the people want. So I thank you both again, because I know you both are super busy. I meant it when I said it, Gina. Allstate royalty. So I just like saying it. I'm going to keep doing it. Thank you both again. If anyone has any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out to Ideal Traits. And Gina, Kelli, if you guys would be fine with us sharing your emails, I'm sure you might get some emails from folks that have questions specific for you both. So thank you all again for joining. Gina, Kelli, thank you. And we look forward to seeing you on Tuesday at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time with Allstate agent Ben Boucher. So thank you both again.
All right. Bye. Thanks.